right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today on another edition of Extreme Health Radio. I hope you're having a great day today. Today is Friday, October 19th, 2012. I hope you're having a great day out there. Thanks for tuning in and listening to us. Right now, we're doing about 3 shows a week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we are broadcasting worldwide from Southern California. Last time I checked, we were in over 40 countries, which is just amazing. So thank you for joining in. Today's episode is episode 24, so you can check that out on extremehealthradio.com/24. On that show page, you'll be able to see the transcription of today's interview, show notes with reference materials and websites and anything the guest mentions. So check that out. If you have any questions, email me. I'd love to hear from you, Justin@extremehealthradio.com. Or you could call in our voicemail line, which is 949-391-7363, and I will play your message to our guest on the air. So that'll be fun. We've been really promoting this product lately. It's called the Vitamix Blender, and this show is brought to you by that product. You'll get free shipping if you buy it through us. You can check that out at extremehealthradio.com/Vitamix. Before we introduce our guest, Marty Gallagher, who I'm really excited to have on today, I wanted to talk about our upcoming show schedule. We've got Magda Havas next week talking about the dangers of electromagnetic radiation. So that should be pretty fascinating. If you have a cell phone, you may want to listen to that one. We've got Dr. Mark Serkis, who's a prolific author. He's the director of IMVA out of Brazil. So he'll be talking about cancer and heart disease. Then we've got Dr. Jack Tips on Friday in a week from today. So we've got a lot of great interviews lined up all the way through the end of the year. So make sure to tune in. Check out our schedule page for those. And today's guest, I am really excited to have Marty Gallagher on. He's quite a prolific guy. He's an athlete, and in 1967, he won the Teenage Olympic weightlifting title and set 2 national records. In 1967, that is. And then in 1997, he set the world national record in squat 220-pound class with a 722-pound lift. That's just amazing at the age of 47. And he's been actively involved in training special ops for over a decade. He's a fitness author. And Joe Weider called Gallagher's book, Cone, The Man, the Myth, the Method, simply the greatest book on powerlifting ever written, which is pretty an amazing thing coming from Joe Weider. His most recent publication, which is The Purposeful Primitive, you can check out on dragondoor.com, has been widely acclaimed. So thank you so much for joining us, Marty. We really appreciate it.
Good morning for me, and how's everyone out there doing?
We're doing great. So where are you calling in from today?
I'm in right outside of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Great. So you started weightlifting as a teenager.
Yeah, actually, I started as a preteen. I've been hoisting iron at a serious level for 51 years.
Wow. What got you started so early, even before you were a teenager?
I came up in a sort of the weightlifting equivalent of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu clan. Mm-hmm. I was born and raised in a hotbed of Olympic weightlifting activity, and from a very early age, I was really pushing big weights in a serious way, training with grown men, competing regionally, nationally. You know, when I was still a teen, I got into the whole philosophy of physical transformation as a result of my lifting. I expanded my horizons. I worked for a Weider organization for 10 years as a writer on bodybuilding, and got to know all the top bodybuilders of the 80s and 90s, and became very familiar with their dietary provisions. Say what you will about bodybuilders, they are the world's best dieters when it comes to low body fat percentiles. So between my lifting and my exposure to the bodybuilders, and I've always been a writer, and I've had over 1,000 articles published since 1978. And so I'm all of a sudden 62 years old and sort of senior citizen in the fitness world.
Mm-hmm. So the question is, did you get your workout in today?
As a matter of fact, I did. I every morning at dawn I run for an hour in the woods, and I I find that that's the best way to start my day. Since I'm a full-time professional writer, my time is my own, so I don't have to work for the man. And so that's short of rain. That's usually the way I start my day. Is I'll get out and I wouldn't call it a run, more of a jog trot kind of a thing, but gets the metabolism kicking, clears the head. I think it's a real advantage to suck in the super oxygenated outdoor air as opposed to the stale recycled gym air. And who knows what exhalations the guy next to you on the treadmill is polluting the atmosphere with,
Right. So is there truth to the idea that I've seen a lot of the UFC fighters, they mentioned that they run early in the morning because it helps set their metabolism for the day? You kind of just mentioned that. Does that help with metabolism?
Oh, absolutely. Of course, cardio has to be intense enough to spike the metabolism. That's easy science. What most folks don't realize is that the metabolism, once you do engage in some sort of exercise activity that's intense enough to spike it, it will remain spiked for hours after the cessation of the session. So with the bodybuilders, one tactical wrinkle that they use that I've expropriated is they would, and I also, will engage in an intense cardio session first thing in the morning before eating. Coming off the sleep fast, your glycogen stores are at their lowest, and glycogen is the body's favored form of fuel. So in the absence of glycogen, and when subjected to an intense exercise, the body will be forced to burn its second favored source of fuel, which is body fat. Okay, so by using this little technical wrinkle, and by engaging in an intense exercise session before you eat the first meal of the day, you literally force the body to burn body fat. And that's why if you go into any big-time bodybuilder gym, you'll see them all lined up doing their cardio first thing in the morning.
Wow, so do you do like an intense, by intense do you do it for a long period of time or just short and intense cardio?
Well, I think that cardio should be alternated in the same way that we strategically alternate resistance training, and we also strategically alternate diets. Cardio should not be... The human body is a miraculous organism, and if you subject it to any training or nutritional regimen long enough, it will neutralize the effects. It will seek homeostasis. So if you continue to do the same thing over and over in the same way, the body will neutralize the effects. And the reason that you go into commercial gyms and you see the same guys at the same time doing the same thing over and over, and the reason they never change is because their bodies have adapted to what they're doing. And so we've continually got to classical periodization, which is the sort of the highest level of sport. In periodization, we generally look to switch dramatically training routines about every 4 weeks. Science has shown that after about 4 weeks, the body will neutralize whatever it is that you've been doing.
Yeah, I've heard 3 weeks and 4 weeks, all throughout the time that I've been working out too. So how do you couple that with, because I know you're a proponent of, the more of the compound exercises and the things like that. So with those, there's only a handful of those.
That's right.
So how do you couple that with changing up your workouts if there's only a handful of the compound exercises?
Oh, well, that's actually a very good question. And the answer is that there is a universe of variation within each of the core four. And what we believe that the thematic basis of resistance training revolves around four specific movements: the squat or deep knee bend, the bench press, the deadlift, and the overhead press. Now, you take a squat, for example, there are at least 20 variations that you can utilize just through free weight squatting. And we're big believers in free weights. Problem with resistance machines is they eliminate what we call the third dimension of tension. There's no need to control side-to-side movement with the machine. The machine does that for you. You're locked into a predetermined groove. You're allowed to just push or pull. A free weight requires that you also keep the payload within a specific motor pathway, and that causes muscle stabilizers to fire. So just through machine makers would lead you to believe that a machine that mimics a particular free weight movement is just as good, when factually that's a huge myth.
All right, so would you recommend machines for anyone, like say if they're injured or if they're older?
Obviously a machine, a resistance machine is better than no resistance training, but I just, we are crazed about technique, and I basically use the same resistance strategy all the way from the obese to the elite. And that strategy is, first of all, reintroducing folks to techniques for the 4 core lifts that they've likely never been exposed to begin with. We are big believers in full and complete range of motion. Everyone else in resistance training is looking for ways to make resistance training easier, which, if you think about it, is a irresolvable contradiction in terms. Why would we want to make resistance easier? Right. We want to make resistance harder. So to that end, we'll do things like ultra deep squats that, in addition to having an extreme range of motion, we'll also pause them at the bottom. Generally speaking, in resistance training, if it's excruciating, you're probably doing it right.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So those exercises were the same ones that I do. There's squats, overhead press, deadlifts, and bench press.
Correct.
Something I had a question about is those are typically considered compound exercises, which
compound multi-joint prime movers, indeed.
So how is, I've always wondered why the bench press is included in that, because it seems like you're isolating. It seems like kind of an isolation exercise, but apparently it's not.
Again, you're not correctly. And again, keep in mind, there are at least a dozen variations of barbell benching, and we haven't even brought in dumbbells. Mm-hmm. Classically performed bench press will activate triceps, front deltoids, pec minor, pec major. Okay. It is the finest single upper body developer. Now, if you alter your grip, the wider the grip you have, the more pec-centric it becomes. The narrower the grip, the more tricep-centric. And in between, you have all these shades of gray, so that when you get to a shoulder width grip, it's fairly evenly divided between chest, triceps, and front deltoids. Most elite bench pressers favor a wider grip because they want to use the massive pec muscles. So grip width, tremendous variant in terms of technique, where the bar touches on the chest, whether or not you use a pause, a short pause, a long pause, whether or not you use a touch and go, whether or not you use dumbbells. Dumbbells, one strategy that we use for our complete beginners is we'll have them do paused dumbbell benches, where we will actually have them release their tension at the bottom and allow the dumbbells to create a pre-stretch. And in doing this, it's almost, as one of my Navy SEALs told me, he says, this is almost like yoga with weights. Mm-hmm. So that's how we ingrain really, really core techniques. And we have typically five sequential variations within each of the 4 techniques, and we don't allow someone who is studying our system to progress until they've mastered the initial technique. Then the secondary technique will be a variation of that thematic basic, and then on we go until finally we're at what most people consider classic exercise techniques. The problem with most resistance training today is they have people jump in on techniques that really they have no business messing with. You'll see a lot of trainers will actually have their people that they're teaching the squat do start with what we call a low bar power squat, which is just, it's fitness malpractice, literally. We want to isolate, we want our squats to build legs, we want our benches to build front torso, we want our shoulder presses to build shoulders, traps, upper pec, and we want our deadlifts to build our back. And between those 4 movements, you'll hit all 600 plus muscles on the human body. Another interesting thing about our system is if it is executed with the requisite intensity, we only have have each lift worked once a week.
Okay.
So you would squat once a week, bench once a week, overhead press once a week, and deadlift once a week. Now, this makes for a very time-compressed, efficient strength system, and this is why it's of particular interest to the military, because the special operators that I work with, time is their most important commodity. So they approached me and said, can you devise for us a no-compromise strength system that has a minimum time investment? They've been having a lot of these bodybuilder types and these football strength coach types, and they were all trying to jam the spec ops operators into their own system, when in fact they needed a really, really different approach. So it's the approach that we champion is perfect for anyone who is serious about resistance training, but doesn't care to spend 6 hours a week in the gym. For a beginner to an intermediate, you can do our system with 1 cumulative hour a week of resistance training.
Really? So you could go, that's 4 different days, right?
I'm sorry?
Is that 4 different days of the week that you would go in?
No, typically we would go day 1, squat and bench.
Okay.
And day 2, deadlift and overhead press.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And you should be able to get through, again, I'm speaking of someone with average strength. Obviously, if you're, super strong, it's going to take you longer. But a relatively normal individual is going to be able to get through each of those workouts in probably 20 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't really take much if you really think about it. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of time to really stress those muscles, does it?
Correct. In fact, you've hit on another important point. Anyone who tells me that they spend 2 hours in the gym doing resistance training, I immediately know that they are completely devoid of any intensity. They've substituted duration for intensity. Our whole approach is intensity trumps everything. And if you're working with me, I want to decimate whatever muscle we're working on and be done with it.
Right. Or, sometimes those are the people that really do intense workouts, but they spend the rest of the time talking, meeting people and stuff like that.
Well, that's a contradiction in terms.
Yeah, that's true.
No one talks. It's working with me.
It's a good thing. So I wanted to, we got to take a quick...
I guarantee that.
They shouldn't have enough breath to speak,
No, they'll hear my big mouth.
That's great. So, all right, we got to take a quick break. I want to talk to you about squats and why squats are so dang important for people to do. We are with Marty Gallagher, his book, The Purposeful Primitive. We're going to talk a little bit more about that after the break as well. You can find that on dragondoor.com. And we were with Marty Gallagher, and we'll be right back. Hey, what's up, everybody? I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Paleo Summit that's put together by our man, Sean Croxton. And this is a summit that took place live over 8 days, and I believe there's 23 video presentations, 23 audio files, 18 hours of cutting-edge information, and 300 pages of transcripts. Now, this program is really an amazing program if you're looking to make some permanent changes in your diet, and if you're tired of struggling with fat loss or weight loss, and you're struggling with food addictions, and you're just looking for a permanent solution, this is definitely something you want to check out. You can find it at extremehealthradio.com/Paleo Summit, and they talk about things like gluten sensitivities, how to curb food addictions and cut back on food cravings, how animal foods and things like cholesterol do not cause heart disease or degenerative diseases, and how to deal with things like bone loss and cancer and muscle pain, autoimmune diseases, and how to burn fat and all that kind of stuff. So if you're looking to change your diet once and for all, definitely check that out. It's extremehealthradio.com/Paleo Summit. All right, let's get back to this interview. All right, we are with Marty Gallagher, author of The Purposeful Primitive. So I would definitely check out that book on dragondoor.com. And prior to the break, we were talking about squats. So Marty, a lot of people don't realize that squats are, one of the most important exercises people can do. Why are squats that critical for your workout routines?
Well, first off, squats are maligned. They're subject to a lot of haters. There's a lot of people out there who desperately want to believe believe that, let's see, we've heard them all. Squats are bad for the knees. Squats are dangerous. It goes on and on and on. The second problem that we have when we approach the squat is that 99.9% of the time squats are taught incorrectly. Almost every personal trainer and every muscle expert teaches squats from the top down. Our approach is that we build squats from the bottom up. We want complete range of motion. We want you to, first of all, if we establish everyone for their particular structure has an appropriate stance width for squatting. You need to find that stance width that allows you to squat all the way down, and like a Vietnamese rice farmer repairing a fishing net, you just kind of sit down there and you lose your thigh tension and you become very comfortable with being in that bottomed out position. Now, from once you're able to determine through a combination of your stance width and your balance where that point is, we spend hours talking about how to properly arise from the depth of a squat. Typically what happens is that the trainee will allow the tailbone to shoot up behind them, and then they'll have sort of this segmented arising, when what we stress is that no, we want a vertical torso, vertical shins. The only thing that moves is the femurs. That makes the squat a leg exercise. What happens is that as you're trying to come up from a heavy squat, the legs send a subconscious signal to the brain. This all happens in a nanosecond, basically saying, hey, this payload, even if it's just the torso, is really heavy. We need some help down here. So the brain will signal back to the legs and say, hey, here's an idea. If you let your tailbone shoot up behind you, what that will do is you won't have to lift the torso. This will allow your thighs to assume a more advantageous telescoped push position, and then you can raise up with greater ease. Well, we don't want to raise up with greater ease. We want to have the trainee rise up carrying initially the full weight of their payload, become very adept at that. Typically, we like to see someone be able to do 3 sets of 15 reps in the ultra deep paused no weight squat before we allow them to graduate to a kettlebell squat. And the kettlebell squat is actually called a goblet squat, and you sort of hold this kettlebell at your chest. And you do the same thing. You sink all the way down to the bottom, and then you arise, keeping the torso vertical, keeping the shins vertical, nothing but femur moving. Then after you're able to do 3 sets of, let's say 8 to 10 reps, handling a modest kettlebell, then we'll switch the trainee to front squats. We love the front squat because the bar is positioned in a rack position at the collarbone, and it forces the trainee to descend and ascend with, again, the all-important vertical torso. If you get bent forward in the front squat, the bar is going to pop off your chest and fall to the floor. Only after you've mastered the no-weight squat, the goblet squat, the front squat, do we let you go to barbell back squat. And then we want the high bar barbell back squat. And everyone else in the world, initially, they jump their people in on barbell back squats, and what happens is the squat becomes an invitation to lean forward. So what they do, rather than squatting down with the barbell behind the neck, they lean forward. You see this in every picture. You just pick up any fitness magazine and look at how they're examples of squatting, and they lean so far forward that the bar is actually in front of the knees. So this becomes a hip hinge exercise, not a leg exercise. So that gives you a little snapshot of how we deal. And that would be the squat. We have equally stringent technical guidelines for the bench, for the overhead press, and for the deadlift.
Now, so when you're doing free weights, it's ultra critical to have your form correct because of injury.
Absolutely.
Right? So
you don't get to use free weights until you can do the form without the free weights. How can you do proper form with free weights if you can't do proper form without free weights? Without any weight.
Mm-hmm. So in your book, do you talk about the correct form of all of these exercises?
Oh, yeah. Yep. You got a big section on technique. Technique was drilled into me. My mentors were world champion lifters. And from the time I was 11 years old, I had technique drilled into my head. So in turn, it's, my turn to give it back. And technique also keeps you safe. 90% of the resistance training injuries occur when the bar or the payload strays outside the precise technical parameters of a properly performed lift.
Yeah, wow. So if someone wanted to do these types of exercises, these 4 that you're mentioning, are there any limitations in terms of, say someone's age, or if someone's pregnant, or if someone's, obviously pregnancy is going to be different, but are there some limitations there?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to make a blanket generalization like that. I can tell you this: I've got 60-year-old out of shape beginners that make fabulous progress because, again, our resistance training, our strategy is this for everyone. Initially, we want to make light weights heavy. Then we have an interim phase, and then only when we get to the advanced phase do we make heavy weights light. Okay, so by making light weights heavy, we get maximum resistance benefit from very small weights. And again, this all loops back to using extreme range of motion, technical perfection. We love pauses like at the bottom of a squat, pause at the bottom of a bench press. This makes it more difficult. Again, our philosophy is we're seeking ways to make resistance training more difficult. Everyone else is seeking ways to make it easier. I just think that this allegiance to technical perfection in lifting is the reason I've had despite I've won three world championships, 6 national championships. I've been in this game for 50 years. I've never had a back, leg, knee, or ankle issue. And I do work with Dr. Stuart McGill out of Canada, the world's leading spine biomechanist, and he is convinced that it's because of my pristine lifting techniques that have actually strengthened not only my spine, but the muscles surrounding my spine. I had no knee problems. And again, I'm a Social Security recipient.
Wow, and that's after doing a 722-pound squat at one point.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh, I did more than that. I handled 840 back when I was 33.
Wow, 840 pounds. And so the squat now is, I've heard a lot of people say that the squats, because it's such a large muscle, it releases, your body releases more hormones. And
yes.
Is that true?
We're big believers in training with enough intensity, regardless of the lift, to trigger the release of endorphins. Endorphins are huge. The whole science is going to catch up. I'm actually doing a book with Dr. Chris Hardy, who is with the Everett Clinic. Chris and I are both looking into this relationship between intense physical training, endorphins. Adrenaline is sort of a superficial hormone. That's on a sort of a flight or fight thing. But if you take all these hormonal releases, they add up. They are the precursor or the signal that you've actually engaged in a productive workout. Most people go through the motions in their resistance training, but they do not train hard enough to trigger hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is not a gradual process. Hypertrophy is like flipping a switch. It either is or it isn't. Hypertrophy is sort of the cellular equivalent of a nuclear explosion, and you can go into a gym and you can train submaximally and be very comfortable and talk to your neighbor while you're doing your sets of bench press, and it's just all very pleasant and nice, and nothing ever happens. Okay, the endorphins are sort of the signifier that you're training hard enough to get actual results. And again, what do we look to resistance training for? Build muscle, strengthen the body, make us more injury resistant. Strong muscles, strong tendons, strong ligaments. These are all injury reducers.
Now, so
we don't look to weight training for any kind of cardio benefit. You follow me? We do cardio for cardio benefit. We do resistance training to build muscle. If you want to lose fat, you're going to have to factor in nutrition combined with your cardio, and you're going to have to talk about energy balance equation, and you're going to have to get serious about micronutrient composition. These are all interrelated elements. The big problem with fitness is everybody's segmented. Everybody wants to be an expert in one of 4 areas. They might be the cardio expert, or they might be the lifting expert, or they might be the nutrition expert. But in order to transform the human body, which is really what we're fitness, when you say fitness, I think of transformation. If you really want to transform transform the human body, you have to have 4 elements: resistance training, cardio, nutrition, and the psychological. And in my book, I have 4 sections on these 4 interrelated critical elements.
So when you were talking a minute ago about the how do you call it? Hypertrophy.
Growth, muscle growth.
Okay, so when you were talking about that, does that mean that you're actually, when a lot of bodybuilders are doing curls and really kind of isolation exercises, when you're really breaking down the muscle like you're talking about, does that mean that you're actually digging deep all the way down to the bottom of the muscle and you're tearing every single fiber of the muscle itself?
I wouldn't look at it like that. It's more like, I think a better way to look at it is that the human body is not going to favorably reconfigure itself in response to ease and sameness. Okay, would you agree?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so if we go with that prime directive, okay, we say yes, there's truth in that. We'll get Krishnamurti-like here, and we'll try to examine this. So if that's the case, well, what do we have to do in order to force the body to transfigure? Well, we have to take it to the limit or past the limit. It's not going to reconfigure itself in response to submaximal effort. So if we have to hit a limit or exceed a limit, then the question becomes, how do we define limit? Limit can have a lot of different definitions, and that's where we get into our periodization. That's where we look at, well, we could exceed a high rep limit. That would be exceeding a limit. We could exceed a low rep limit. If we're doing cardio, we could run the same distance faster. We could maintain our intensity but increase the duration. There are different ways in which we can goose limits. Mm-hmm. Okay. First, we have to be aware of our limits, and then we have to have different strategies to exceed the limits. Now, the problem with exceeding limits is that if you do it and do it consistently, then you really get into the issue of recovery. That's part of the reason why we only have our trainees do each lift once a week, because it allows us 6 full days to recover for that muscle that has been decimated in some manner or fashion to rest and recover, to heal and grow. So again, it all fits together in this kind of giant, crazed, transformational matrix.
I see. So with what you're talking about, hitting, let's say, the chest once a week, I think the problem would be for a lot of people, if they just kind of listened to this and didn't go through your training methods, would be to do a chest exercise, but and not necessarily get the right form, but not go heavy, not really take themselves to a limit to where they actually need a full 6 days. So in other words, I would imagine that a lot of people might just do a really kind of easy chest exercise and then feel like, oh, they got 6 days to recover.
They might as well go bowling or play golf.
Yeah. So you really need to do it correctly in order to have the advantage of having 6 days off, right?
Well, of course.
Yeah, because
if you don't equal or exceed a limit, what is there to rest from?
I know. Yeah, so I can see how people would run into that problem.
This is not particularly pleasant, but it's factual. This is the true methods of true champions. Do you really think that champion athletes who have successfully reconfigured their body have done this kind of yawning their way through their routines? No. You have to bleed a little bit.
So
that's the sad truth of fitness. Everybody wants to sell you an easy method which will allow you to circumvent all the blood, sweat, tears, and toil connected with fitness. That will always sell. Humans will always buy that, whether it's a pill, whether it's a magical method. Mm-hmm. That we are all fall prey to that because we don't want to bleed all over the gym floor in order to get results. But all that stuff is just myth. I mean, it might as well be Ponce de Leon's Fountain of Youth. Right, it's ridiculous.
Wow. You know what? I want to ask you a couple questions about something you said a minute ago about nutrition, but I want to get this break out of the way so that we can have some time to talk.
All right.
We are with Marty Gallagher and his book, The Purposeful Primitive. If this is sounding interesting to you, you can check it out on dragondoor.com and
or Amazon.
Or Amazon. We will be right back with Marty Gallagher.
Hi, Hi, this is Kate. Thanks so much for listening to the show. I want to tell you about a product I love called Yeast Infection No More. You can find it at extremehealthradio.com/yeast. If you're like me and you've ever had a yeast problem, candida overgrowth, you've had many of the following symptoms like digestive disorders, gas, bloating, skin rashes, allergies, migraines, always being tired, PMS, this is a great system that will teach you how to permanently cure your yeast infection, rebalance your body, boost your immune system, regaining back your life, basically. Successfully used by thousands of men and women worldwide. It's best-selling. It's instantly downloadable. 250 pages of jam-packed advice and instruction. It's backed by over 35,000 hours of intense research. It also is accompanied by a free private mail counseling for over 3 months if you buy the product. What is there not to love about it? Again, find it at extremehealthradio.com/yeast.
All right, thank you for joining us. We're with Marty Gallagher from Dragon Door. His book, Purposeful Primitive, is available on that website or on Amazon.com. Marty, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned something a while back which was kind of caught my ears, and it's something that I don't hear in the gym that I go to ever. And you mentioned the word phytonutrients. Now, when I overhear trainers talking to people, it's always macronutrients. It's always carbs,
right,
proteins. And
yeah. And again, I don't want to, honestly, I don't want to get too hung up on that, because it's not really the crux of our nutritional strategy is based upon our work with elite athletes. And what we have found is that optimally, there's no one diet that trumps all others. Okay. And people are, taste preference is a huge thing. I have had athletes that have made phenomenal progress. And how do we define nutritional progress? I would define nutritional progress as follows. Obviously, health considerations, fine, good, get your blood work done and all that. But the ultimate bottom line for me is reduction in body fat percentile, okay? And I have had athletes that have successfully reduced their body fat percentiles into single digits, below 10%, basically living on carbs. I've had other athletes that have reduced their body fat percentiles to single digits, basically living on fat and protein. And there's no one single dietary approach that trumps all others, and there's great logic to rotating diets in the same way that we might rotate training programs. Again, the body is always seeking homeostasis. It's always looking to neutralize the effects of whatever you're subjecting it to. And one thing that we do with great success is we might alter my friend Ori Hofmeckler's warrior diet approach, which is a meal timing strategy, with my friend John Perillo's bodybuilding approach, which is another multiple meal timing strategy. So you've got your timing issues. You can approach it if your particular taste preference leans more toward carbs, then fine. You can base your diet around that. If your taste preference is more toward fat, please. We are not fat phobic. There is a jihad against fat amongst the medical community. And I'm telling you, if you read the works of Gary Taubes and some of these other folks out there, you will see that the real enemy is not fat. The real enemy is refined carbs, these estrogenic producing foods that are everywhere. Obviously, these artificial beverages, and again, please have an open mind. Don't follow the mainstream propaganda. Oh, if you just eliminate fat, everything will be fine, because it's another myth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in your book, you have the 4 pillars that you talk about. What are some of the psychological aspects that you mention in your book?
Well, we think that the psychological aspect of fitness is easily the most overlooked critical aspect. And just in a nutshell, you have different, well, we can start with this. Everybody thinks that fitness is some grand act of willpower. Mm-hmm. The problem with willpower is it's finite. Every act of will must come to an end. Willpower implies that you are doing something that you would prefer not to do. What we seek to develop is we seek to develop enthusiasm for the process. Enthusiasm is a self-regenerating. It's like solar power. And if you can become enthusiastic about the fitness process, then invariably you're going to be successful, because you will have the longevity that's necessary to see it through to success. Now, the problem with enthusiasm is, how do you generate fitness enthusiasm? And in our experience, it comes down to one word: results. You get tangible, mathematically definable physical results. You start seeing changes in your body fat percentile. You start picking up some muscle. You start feeling better. These are real results, and that's what generates enthusiasm for the process. The more results, the greater the enthusiasm. The greater the enthusiasm, the more results. Round and round it goes. So we look to get results for people new to our system quickly, like within 7 days, because we want to hook them. We want to hook them on the fact that, no, if you do lock down all these interrelated aspects, you're going to see, first off, you're going to feel a hell of a lot better within the first 7 days. Within the first 14 days, you're going to start seeing physical changes. And within the first month, you're going to start seeing changes to the point that you're going to be dropping pant sizes or dress sizes. At the end of 2 months, friends and neighbors are going to start noticing. And at the end of 3 months, you're going to be a new person. This, again, assumes that you lock down your resistance training element, your cardiovascular training element, and your nutrition element. All of this is powered by the psychological. In addition to this, the enthusiasm, which is a long-term psychological element, you also have this, what we call psych. And top athletes use psych in their workouts to improve performance. And it's a learned skill. The more that you try to apply psych in your training, the better at it you become. Top elite athletes will be able to improve performance in a workout by anywhere from 5 to 10% just by getting their psych on. Okay. The opposite of psych is this casual distractedness that you see in gyms. People want to be distracted. They'll watch TV while they're pedaling on cardio. What's up with that? Well, what they're doing is so gruesome that they need distraction. This is exactly what we don't want. This is why I go out in nature every day. I want to do my running outside. I want to have to pay attention that to a degree that if I space out, I'm going to trip over a root. Okay? My cardio done outdoors on mountain trails actually forces me to amplify my concentration. I become one with the activity. This is the complete opposite to becoming somnambulistic, spaced out, sitting on a stationary bike in a commercial gym, pedaling while watching television. Right. These are all different psychological tricks that we use to elicit progress. Everything is about progress. If you're not making progress, get rid of the system that you're working with. Okay. So
would you recommend someone, if they wanted to implement some of these principles, let's say they pick up your book and they want to get started, would you recommend they join a gym, or would they buy some free weights at home, use them in their garage, or? Well,
I guess all of the above. You know what I mean? I don't belong to a gym. I have my weights in my garage, but I know what I'm doing. There's no blanket answer to that question. We can work with anybody's circumstance. I do personal training at a high-end level, and I work with individuals literally around the world, and in every circumstance. In most cases, these are high-powered business people who can afford my expensive services, and they have all different types of circumstance, and I've got clients in Australia, New Zealand, Saudi Arabia, Austria, everywhere, and in each case we're able to elicit results for them based upon what their situation is, based upon what tools they have available, based upon their available time. Our system is very pliable, it's very malleable, but it's founded on a couple of principles. Number one, in resistance training, technique and intensity. Number two, cardio, working to the point that you're triggering endorphins. Number three, nutrition, finding a diet plan that works for you. Generally speaking, in nutrition, you either want to be carb-centric or fat-centric. We love protein for both because protein builds and maintains muscle. So regardless if you want to be primarily a carb eater or primarily a fat eater, you do need ample amounts of protein. We suggest at least half a gram a day. For sort of a normal person, if you're an athlete, you certainly need a gram of protein per pound of body weight per day. The trick is don't mix protein and fats. If you mix them, you're going to get bad results, okay? You will not lose that body fat, okay? And again, the natural carbs, obviously refined carbs, man-made stuff, chips, sodas, alcohol other than, occasionally and periodically. This stuff has got to go because your insulin has gone crazy as a result of ingesting these man-made artificial foods. And we become insulin resistant because our receptor sites are continually clogged, and we're just not able to clear this stuff. And the first thing that we like to do is detoxify our people, get them off that stuff. And I tell you, almost every case, just by eliminating the man-made refined foods, it's miraculous. I mean, they feel better, they start losing body fat, and they're not even dieting. So again, I don't mean to cover too much ground. Every time you ask me a question, I give you 5 answers, but one always ties to the next, to the next, to the next.
Right. So a minute ago, you were talking about not mixing your proteins with your fats. Would you just recommend separate meals?
Protein and fat is fine. Protein and carb is fine. Fat and carb is not fine.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you want to not have a meal that contains both of those items in one sitting.
Yeah, the reason that, and again, I love Italian food. It is my favorite cheat food, but pasta and butter, you know what I mean? I mean, we love it, and cheese, but that's exactly what we don't want, because there you've got refined man-made carb mixed with fat, and the result is disastrous if you're looking to lose body fat, which everyone in fitness, that's really what they want to do. They want to lose that body fat.
Right. Wow. Okay, so that's a good tip. And so what do you make of this? I hear a lot of people, gyms and people in the gyms talking about this whole time under tension philosophy with working out. Can you explain what that is and whether or not that's that works well for people?
Yeah, well, I don't know what the current bumper sticker soundbite is, but time under tension's a classical resistance training strategy, because it's like if you're lifting a weight, you're inducing muscle tension, right? Mm-hmm. So then the question becomes, how long what's your sum total of your time under tension? And I think what they're probably trying to get at is longer duration. We prefer short, intense sessions where, for example, if a man is able to squat, let's say 200 pounds for 5 reps, he would come into the gym and he'd probably handle, maybe 95 for 8 to 10 just to get some blood into the area. He'd take a rest, maybe a couple minutes. He'd jump to 135 and probably do 2 to 3 reps. We'd probably jump him to 165 for 1 rep, and then we'd have him do his top set, his work set of 200 for 5 reps. If he makes the 200 for 5, the next week we'll jump him to 205 for 5, and we'll repeat the process. Now, we have all different types of cycling and periodization strategies where we'll also use multiple sets, but that's sort of the basic resistance training strategy. Now, in terms of time under tension, how do you define tension? Is his 95-pound set for 12, is that tension? Right. Or is only the 200-pound for 5 tension? I don't know if that's clear, but there's tension and then there's tension.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. So now when you do those types of exercises, do you pyramid back down as well, or do you hit the top? Okay.
No. We might, if anything, we would do multiple top sets. We might, for my military guys, my advanced military guys, we have a strategy where if a man is able to handle a particular poundage for 3 sets of 5 reps, regardless of the lift, it can be said that man owns that poundage. So let's take the 200-pound squat. If a man is able to do 3 sets of 5 reps with 200 pounds in the ultra deep pause squat or front squat, well, he owns that 200. So then the question question becomes, what's next? Well, let's jump to 210. Now, how do we transition from being able to do 3 sets of 5 with 200 to handling the 210? One strategy that we will use is we might start him off, and again, this is work sets after he's warmed up, with 4 sets of 3 with 210. A man who can do 3 sets of 5 with 200 certainly can do a triple with 210. So we might have 4 sets of 3 with 210. Then the following week we might have 3 sets of 4 with the 210. The week after that we might have 2 sets of 5 with the 210. And then in the 4th week we would have him do 3 sets of 5 with 210. Now he owns 210.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So
this is periodization strategy at an elite level.
So now I know that a lot of people, especially a lot of paleo kind of people, they love the CrossFit. And I've never done CrossFit, but how does CrossFit differ from some of the principles you're talking about? Don't
know. Don't really care. Doesn't concern me. My friends call me a fitness monk. I am not on the scene. I don't pay attention to trends. I work with elite athletes. I work with elite military. That's it. I don't care what's going on in the wider fitness world. Ours is a philosophy. It's not a collection.
Right. That's so great. So do you do anything else for your fitness, things like Tai Chi or yoga or Qigong, stuff like that? Do you do those?
Years ago, I did 7 years of Tai Chi, Bagua Xingyi under Robert Smith, and anyone who knows anything about old school martial arts knows that Bob Smith was a top flight guy, CIA operative in Taiwan, and probably one of the foremost early proponents of the Chinese internal martial arts. I did that for 7 years. I played ball at different levels, but it was a Class B racquetball player, club champion. But these are distractions. You follow me? Not things that I do with complete intensity.
Right. I do a little bit of yoga myself, and I've been doing a lot of this heavyweight training for a while too. So I think I'm going to pick up your book.
Well, good.
Yeah,
And then invite me back on after you've read it and absorbed it. Then you can ask me some good tight questions about what. Okay, I've got the book. What do we do? You follow me?
Yeah, exactly.
I'd love to work with you on that.
That'd be great. Yeah. People can pick up that book on dragondoor.com and on Amazon. And you mentioned a while ago, we're just going to close up and wrap up here, but you mentioned a while ago about some other things that you're working on. I think another book you mentioned?
Oh yeah, I got projects
galore
coming out of my wazoo here. I've got 2 books I'm working on a book with Mark Ripito. It's Starting Strength, and I'm very excited about sort of the old school lifters and their different strategies. I've got a book coming out with Dragon Door that tentatively is called The Soft Machine, which is a takeoff of William Burroughs and his description of the human body. Of course, I do 6 articles a month for 4 different magazines, and I'm a busy writer, boy.
Wow. So now, how far do you think, you said that you were in your early 60s, so how far do you think you can take your strength training in terms of your age? I mean, could you keep going for as long as you like?
Well, my 45-year-old wife thinks so.
That's great.
Former Miss Maryland, and fantastic athlete herself. And I don't pound the super heavy weights anymore. But relative to my age, that's another good point. I don't. There's no need for me to handle 700 or 800 pounds anymore. You follow me? I'm fine with handling 400 or 500.
Okay.
Right. So I don't have a problem with that, and some guys my age do. They're like, well, if I can't handle 800 anymore, I'd quit. And of course, what happens is they turn into fat guys,
right?
Because they love the old eating habits. They don't want to give those up, but they let the training go.
Yeah, wow. Well, thank you, Marty, for joining us. I'm just so excited about your program, and I love working out myself, so this would be great for me to pick up. But thanks for spending some time with us. I appreciate it.
Sure, man. Have me back on again. We'll get into it deeper.
I love that. Thanks, Marty.
All right, my friend. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye. Well, that was a really fun interview. I hope you enjoyed it with Marty Gallagher. I did. I love working out, so that was kind of fun for me. And I love his principles and what he stands for, and just all of his ideas. I think it's really kind of just basic and simple. So I just thought that was really great. So thanks for listening. I really appreciate that. I hope you got a lot of value from it, and hopefully you can start putting some of his training methods to use. On this page for this show, which is extremehealthradio.com/24, there'll be a link to his Amazon book and all of that. So if you buy through us, we'll get a little commission. Also, if you found value in this interview and you liked it, could you do me a favor and click like on the show page, and also like us on Facebook? I would really, really appreciate that. We're kind of relying on all of our listeners to be able to help spread the word for us. So we'd really, really appreciate that. And maybe follow us on Twitter or send this link to your friends. You know, some of those types of things, that would really, really help us a lot to get the word out and to grow this network. And because we want to keep it free for everyone, so we don't want to have to charge for this stuff. So also, I wanted to let you know we have a store, and check out our store for tons of great products like rebounders, blenders, all kinds of fitness materials, workout books, and stuff like that. So visit our store, and if you buy anything through us, we'll get a commission. We would really appreciate that. Also, if you'd like to donate, let's say you just want to donate $1, you can do so. We would really, really appreciate it. We've got links on the site for donations, so it's all done through PayPal. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so glad you listened, and send me an email, justin@extremehealthradio.com, or give me a call. The phone number's on the website. I'd love to hear from you and love to hear how your successes are going out there.